Well, there's one thing that particularly interests me. We've been seeing an explosion in what's being loosely termed turbo cancers, and I know that this is an area of specialty for you. Do you have any particular thoughts on that?
Certainly. I've been tracking sudden deaths in COVID vaccinated individuals since about late 2021. That's when I first started noticing Canadian doctors dying suddenly after taking their booster shot. And that to me was a very unusual and strange phenomenon where you would have a young doctor in their 40s and 50s. They would take the booster shot, and a few days later, a few weeks later, they would die in their sleep. I mean, this kind of thing simply didn't happen. That was a huge red flag for me. The more I looked into the sudden deaths of doctors specifically, because there's a lot of attention placed on doctors. Of course, when a community loses a doctor, that makes the news. And so it's easier to find information specifically on doctors, and all the doctors in Canada were vaccinated. There are only a handful out of the 100,000 doctors, Canadian doctors, that didn't take the vaccine that are still practicing medicine. So it's something like 99.9% vaccination rate. And they were the first ones to line up for their vaccines. Well, as I started looking at the sudden deaths of Canadian doctors, I realized, yes, most of them are dying from cardiac issues, heart injuries, cardiac arrests, dying while jogging or swimming, dying in their sleep. And Dr. Peter McCullough has talked about this extensively, about the myocarditis and the damage to the heart, the scarring to the heart. And then some were dying from blood clots, pulmonary emboli, strokes. But then there was quite a large subset of doctors who were developing extremely aggressive cancers. And cancers at an age that they shouldn't be getting. So, for example, there was a doctor who developed gastric cancer in his 30s, presented at stage 4, he was dead in less than a year. Very rare brain cancers in young individuals in their 20s and 30s, medical students, medical residents. And these cancers would always present at stage 4, and they would always kill them in a matter of a few months, and it was always less than a year. And, at first I didn't know, what the term for this was or what the phenomenon was. I just started, really paying attention to it, tracking it. I then, realized that this is being called turbo cancer by people on social media. Turbo cancer is not a medical term, but it's a term that people came up with to really describe the extremely aggressive nature of these cancers in the COVID vaccinated. And these cancers behave completely differently, unlike anything I've seen before in my career. And I've diagnosed over 20,000 cancer patients in my career with cutting-edge PET-CT, positron emission tomography imaging, CT, MRI, pathological correlation. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen stage 4 breast cancers presenting in women in their 20s. I've never seen stage 4 colon cancers presenting in men and women in their 20s, 30s. Leukemias that will kill you in a matter of days or even hours after diagnosis. Lymphomas that, again, kill you in a matter of months. So, these turbo cancers, they seem to be arising specifically in people who've had the Pfizer or Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. It seems that one vaccine is enough if you're unlucky. But of course, the more vaccines you take, the more risk you have. And these cancers are always presenting at stage 4. They're always picked up very late. They grow very rapidly. So they catch the oncologists off guard. Sometimes they try to surgically remove it, and they think that it's contained. And after the surgery, they realize that the cancer has spread. It has spread to the lymph nodes. It has spread to the lungs, to the bones, and so on. And the other feature of these cancers is that they are very resistant to conventional treatment. They're resistant to chemotherapy. They're resistant to radiation therapy. And patients seem to do very poorly with conventional treatments. Oncologists are really baffled. They don't know what to do. They try to give the standard treatments. The standard treatments don't work. And then the patient is dead in a matter of months. And that is the other feature of these things, is that the prognosis is so poor that these cancers will kill you in a matter of weeks or months. And if you're lucky, you might live up to a year. But the prognosis seems to be extremely poor with these aggressive cancers.
Do you have any prognosis or ideas to what might be causing that such rapid development of cancer, and why that might be happening?
Well, there's been a number of theories proposed in the literature. Some of them are backed in the literature. The problem is that oncologists are refusing to recognize this phenomenon. And so they're not studying it because they're afraid for their medical licenses. Those of us who have stood up and spoken out about vaccine injuries, these cancers and so on. We've lost our careers, we've lost our jobs, we've lost our medical licenses. So if as a doctor, you're ready to stand up for your Hippocratic oath and for medical ethics, if you recognize this phenomenon and you speak about it, you have to be prepared to lose everything. And so, there's not a lot of research being done. I actually had one of the publications which proposed one of the mechanisms. And one of the mechanisms that's been proposed, it's what's called an IgG4 shift. That's the type of antibody that your body produces to the spike protein. It changes the more shots you take of the vaccine. So if you take the first 2 shots, you're producing very little IgG4 antibody, and you're producing IgG1 and 3, which handle other viral infections and also handle cancer surveillance. So you're fine. The moment you take the booster shot, your IgG4 levels go up 500-fold, and your immune system starts completely shifting towards producing this different type of antibody, and it's an antibody known for tolerance. So it's something you develop. Let's say if you have, allergy to something, your body produces this antibody to try to tolerate this, toxic foreign antigen that you're being constantly exposed to. Well, if the spike protein is what you're being exposed to, with the 3rd shot, for example, or the 4th shot or the 5th shot, your body says, you know what, let's not have a hyperimmune, response each time. Let's start to tolerate this spike protein, produces a lot of IgG4. The problem is that the IgG4 production actually takes away from the cancer surveillance. And now your body is actually very vulnerable to cancer cells because the immune system just completely shuts off and starts not paying attention to cancer cells as well as the spike protein. And so you have these cancer cells that have an environment they've never seen before. So they can grow rapidly. They can spread all over the body. It's almost like uncontrolled growth with literally no immune system or no immune system protection. So that's one of the mechanisms that's been proposed. We've published a paper on that that's been peer reviewed and has been accepted. And other mechanisms include the spike protein. And what's so dangerous about the spike protein and why spike protein detoxification is so key is that the spike protein can interact with tumor suppressor proteins like P53, like BRCA1, which is implicated in breast cancer, ovarian cancer. P53 is implicating in lung cancers, colon cancers, other cancers as well, many other cancers. It seems to interfere with tumor suppressor genes and proteins. It interferes with DNA replication, so it can damage DNA replication. And now, there's been a new discovery that in addition to the toxicity of the spike on the immune system and on our DNA and on our tumor suppressor proteins, there's additionally this DNA contamination in Pfizer and Moderna vials from the mass manufacturing process that Pfizer and Moderna have employed and that they've told us they're going to employ for all future mRNA vaccines. And this DNA contamination is in the form of these DNA rings, which are called plasmids, which actually contain the entire spike protein sequence. They put them into E. coli. They grow E. coli to billions and billions of cells so that they could then extract the DNA, convert it to the pseudouridine modified RNA, and then purify it and put it into the Pfizer and Moderna vials. Well, it turns out that they haven't been getting rid of this DNA contamination, that the DNA stays present in the vials. It's been found in every single vial that's been tested by numerous labs in the United States. Cancer genomics expert, Professor Philip Buckholt in South Carolina has testified to the Senate about this. He's found it in every single vial. It's been found in Germany. It's been found in Japan. This is a very serious problem because if you have foreign contaminant DNA, which has the spike protein sequence and it integrates into our genome, now you're producing spike protein potentially indefinitely. And there is no off switch. And then the other issue is that if it integrates into the wrong place, you might knock out a tumor suppressor gene. And now you've just, eliminated, one of your protection mechanisms for cancer. And so this is potentially cancer causing, could be behind the rise of some of these turbo cancers.